Daily. I'm Scott Faughn, joined by today's co-host Aaron Tripp. Thank you for making the time, joining us.
Thanks.
And the Attorney General of the great state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey, Mr. 114. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
It is kind of dope. I mean, you can look at a map anywhere you want to say, I won that, I won that, I won that, I won that. I mean, that's pretty sweet, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a great win in August, great win in November. Humbled to have folks across the state.
Do you ever show Kehoe like, oh, that must suck, you lost St. Louis media market? I mean, I've never done that myself, but I mean, that must be a tough pill to swallow.
You know, AG stands for almost governor. How about that? So we'll just let consider that for a little bit.
All right, first thing off the top, we have a very dear friend of ours. You see this Missouri soybeans thing on the desk all the time. A dear friend of mine, a dear friend of a lot of folks in this state, Gary Wheeler. He moved on from being the CEO of the Soybean Association. I mean, what a great legacy. I mean, he took it when it was in the worst possible shape. He repaired these relationships. He got the thing in a good spot. He changed some of the innovation and the research stuff. I really think he was a leading person in getting some of the money at the Mizzou seeding operation. And then the Soy Center. What a lasting legacy. I mean, Gary Wheeler, really, you could see the impact he left on the Soybean Association and the state.
Yeah, my personal interactions with Gary were just phenomenal. Relationships mattered to him.
Yeah.
He invested in those relationships. He'd come to see me in Herman. He'd want to have dinner here in Jeff City. And that man knew his business, knew the business of Jefferson City, and got things done. And he will absolutely leave his imprimatur on that organization. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah.
You know, there's a young staffer there, Casey Wasser, who I think has also done a phenomenal job. And I think
it's a true thing, though. He took the situation was bad.
Yeah.
When he came, I mean, there was a lot of issues. Nobody could go in all of them. But he's leaving it better than he found it, and he's leaving it in some of the most capable hands in Missouri. This guy's tested. Aaron, you've worked with Casey. I mean, what a top-flight guy.
I think, a testament to building a great team. Casey's great. Matt Amick, long childhood friend. Just leaving it in great hands. Yeah.
I mean, I just a testament of an organization. You leave it better than you found it, right? And I think Gary Wheeler can absolutely say that. And again, you look to the future. I think you have one of the top. I mean, Casey Wasser's putting together a resume that he's gonna be, when you talk about the ag leaders in this state, he's already at the top of that. I think the future, I'm with you, is pretty bright.
Yeah, I'm excited for Casey's future, get to work with him. We'll miss Gary. Again, he's done so much for this state and for his association, for the people who put their trust and faith in him, and I think Casey's the right man to carry on that legacy of excellence.
Yeah. All right, so we're at a bus in Lawrence County, Missouri this fall. Me, you, and the governor and the state treasurer. And you're talking about, we're going to take on St. Louis crime, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, whatever. And then you're like, no, we're really going to do this. And I'm like, okay, but can you actually address St. Louis crime? And before Kehoe could answer, like, yes, we can. So the bill that was passed, that's going into effect, break that down to how that's going to actually lead to making folks feel safer in St. Louis.
Well, first and foremost, it's a step in the right direction. I don't think there's one single bill that fixes crime in St. Louis.
Sure.
But this is a step in the right direction, shows forward progress and momentum under the governor's leadership and the hard work of the General Assembly getting that thing done like they did. But what it does is it reinstitutes the Board of Police Commissioners for the St. Louis Police Department. That makes St. Louis Metropolitan Police officers state employees. That takes the politics, the local politics, out of policing. Now, instead of having political impulses spread over 250, 300,000 residents of the city of St. Louis who elect a mayor and board of aldermen. Now it's spread over 115 different jurisdictions. And so you don't have that same political impulse influencing the decision making. I think this is a better world for the police to be able to do their jobs unfettered from those politics. They're the newest client to the state's law firm, the Attorney General's office. And so we can provide competent, consistent, predictable civil representation in civil suits against the police officers. And that should empower them to be aggressive in their pursuit, investigations, and ultimate prosecution.
They're stoked. I mean, this is probably not the ideal way to do this, but for the situation, I mean, you talk to the guys, they're stoked.
Yeah,
they're excited about this.
Yeah, I think this is empowering those police officers to have confidence that the state of Missouri has their back and values the work they do and will be there to support them and back the blue. And I think that's the first step in reinstituting a sound criminal justice system in the city of St. Louis.
So, talk about, to me, crime is a perception, right? There are places in this state that could be more dangerous than St. Louis, but it's not perceived so. I have walked from the Evergy headquarters down to the plaza before and never felt unsafe. If you were at a ball game, a night game, and you went to patios afterwards, because nobody goes to Ballpark Village, because that's where the Cubs fans go. But you go to patios, the gritty, nice, rundown bar, Would you walk to the Magnolia Hotel up on Washington Avenue after you went there? So it's about 11 o'clock now.
Yeah, back in my 20s, when I still went out past 9 o'clock, I frequented patios in the Dubuque Oyster Bar down there.
Oh yeah.
And
Would you walk up to the Magnolia? I wouldn't.
No, but I'm not a 20-year-old anymore, so I don't have quite as much confidence.
If you and I were out, you're a damn war hero.
Yeah.
I'd be like, hey, let's just get an Uber. Let's not chance this. At some point, though, I think success is on a nice summer evening. It's 10, 11 o'clock. People actually feel safe walking 6-8 blocks in downtown. I don't think that's the way it is now. What is the trajectory to get there? And I think it's perception as much as anything.
Well, and I think the metric for success is as you described, but I think it's also as Governor Kehoe has laid out. When do we get businesses reinvesting in downtown and moving downtown and moving those jobs and opportunities downtown? And when we see that happening, we will know we have been successful. And look, that's not something that can happen overnight.
It's not a one-year plan. It's not a 2-year plan. You're the chief law enforcement officer. How many years do you think you're going to look until folks feel safer, businesses feel safe to invest? There's a lot of good things happening in St. Louis right now, but with those things happening, was it a 5-year plan? What do you think it is?
I think that the timeline has to be tethered to or proportional to the aggressive nature of the legislation that we get passed. I think that it could take 10 years if we have a slow incremental approach. If the General Assembly and the governor keep moving at the pace at which they're moving this session, it can be a lot less.
So why don't you just do this? I mean, to me, every city is going to be defined by its downtown. Every city is made up of a collection of great neighborhoods, but really, the downtown is where people. Why would the city not, or the police commissioners, or whatever? There's 81 Cardinal home games. That's when a huge chunk of this region of this country comes to downtown St. Louis. Why wouldn't you just make that a fortress and put a cop everywhere, and just put the word to the criminal community? Hey, you do something downtown, we're putting you in jail.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, you need police officers at a staffing level that can accommodate that. I think that you need the police officers to have the confidence that there's an entity, a governmental entity backing them that's going to have their back.
Gabe Gore's been an improvement in that, right?
Gabe Gore's been an improvement. And I think that ultimately, prosecuting those cases, there is no replacement for investigation and prosecution. Like since the dawn of time, no one has ever come up with a replacement for that strategy. And if we're not doing those things well, then we need to find out how we can adjust those things. I would also submit to you that I think it's time that we take a hard look at our juvenile system. I think that I've worked in the juvenile court system in the city of St. Louis. I've been an attorney for a juvenile officer in Warren County, Missouri. And we need to make sure that our juvenile cases on the delinquency side are aligned with our prosecutorial goals on the adult side. And I say that to mean we need to make sure that we're preventing kids from ending up in adult court by getting the services in their lives early enough to prevent them from becoming adult criminals. And right now, I don't see a lot of transparency or accountability in the juvenile system. Part of that is the juvenile officers work for the judiciary. That's an umpire setting the batting order. We wouldn't tolerate that in Major League Baseball. Why do we tolerate it in government?
You could have caught people like Erin Younger and stopped her before she really hurt someone.
Yeah.
That's a good plan.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the next incremental approach to addressing this issue.
You mentioned investigations and prosecution. I guess I took a little for granted seeing the guys in the union that I know in the St. Louis Police Department. When Gabe Gore came in, they really felt like their work was meaningless. Like, no matter what they did, either incompetence or just a different philosophy, was the people they were arresting would not be prosecuted. Then I watched the momentum and the energy. Like, there's such a moving event. It's going to be next Friday at the Capitol, the candlelight vigil for any officers that passed. Those guys, when you talk to them, they were talking about they come to my place here. They are on fire right now. I mean, they're excited about the future and what's next. And I think that is a cool place to be.
I think you've got a governor who's from St. Louis. He has deep roots in the city of St. Louis and understands the dynamic there and some of the problems. I think that, I'm not from St. Louis, but I lived there when I got out of the Army. That's where I moved, and so I've spent some time working in city government. And so you've got leadership in Jefferson City that understands the value of St. Louis and the necessity of a sound, robust criminal justice system to hold wrongdoers accountable and find justice for victims. And that safer streets equal prosperous communities.
Does Cindy O'Loughlin and John Patterson know the next steps you think they need to take to secure St. Louis?
Those are conversations that are ongoing, and I think those are conversations that happen in the interim.
Is that something you could set down? Now that the local controls thing I always heard.
Yeah.
I know there's some other pieces in that bill, but that was the main part. You said you need more things to keep the momentum going.
I think that's right.
Do you have those in your head that you could tell them when they get done with session?
Yeah, and I think the governor has laid out a lot of those too. I mean, he's talked about minimum prison terms, and what we mean there is determinative sentencing. Right now, we've got this Byzantine labyrinth of sentencing laws that it's a sediment that has built up over time, and we're constantly trying to deconflict, inconsistencies or incongruence amongst that statute. We need to do an overhaul of that system.
That's where people talk about racism. And I have no doubt it colors everything to a certain extent. But to me, in that sentencing, I've seen people that had pretty good cases to me that they laid out where some of the sentencing, because it is such a weird jigsaw puzzle, I think that's where you open yourself to criticism on racism, is this inconsistencies from this really complicated system that seems more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, and I think that's as conservatives, we've always championed local control, and that's a good and wonderful thing. But when you've got 115 different jurisdictions, you've got 115 different prosecutors, you've got 433 different judges, all making independent decisions. And so what constitutes a burglary first in St. Charles County might look different than what constitutes a burglary first in St. Louis City, and the outcomes in those cases, one might be prison, one might be probation. And so how are we using probation? And again, I think that how are we addressing those issues from a sentencing standpoint? I think that looking at that system-wide across all 46 judicial circuits, across all 115 different jurisdictions, I think looking at a system-wide approach and trying to create some consistency is not a bad thing. And I don't know that, I think it's tough to argue against that.
I think the most promising thing that we saw at the end of that debate was that but leadership in both chambers let it play out. But at the end of the day, I think the governor and leadership everywhere said, if St. Louis succeeds, the state succeeds. Like, everybody recognizes that that's the economic engine that kind of keeps the state going.
I think they made some betterment. I think you should have to be confirmed by the Senate. I think you should have to live in the city. If you're going to be in the police board, you should be a St. Louisan. I thought some of the changes that were made in the Senate were common sense. I mean, it is a aggressive step. But the problem, I think everybody thought this was overly aggressive. Take it back over. But the problem is overly aggressive. And so you have to but I do think they moderated some of those things to make it more, if you're a citizen of the city of St. Louis, this is more amenable than when it first started out.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, at the end of the day, we say it's state control. You got to live in the city.
And be confirmed. You have to be sponsored by a St. Louis senator. Which I assume will be Democratic for most of our lifetime. But speaking of, let's talk about something good. My buddy Carl, this from Fairway, Missouri, sent me this terrific Stein. Carl, sure appreciate it. We will add to the collection. Come by anytime. We'll show you all of them. We're going to build more shelves. Right now, we got a backlog. We'll keep going. Buddy of yours, buddy of mine. I had a really cool experience Saturday night. Got to go down Casey's hometown, and it's very. I didn't. If you go down there and say hometown of Farmington, they get real put out. There's North County and then there's Farmington. So the event was in Farmington, but Casey's from North County. We got to honor a Farmington guy in Tom Birch, and we talk about just a class act. It was cool to see. His mother was there. Got to see her son honored by the entire county's Republican Party for all the stuff he has done. What a good dude. Yeah, I've gotten to meet Tom's folks. I've gotten to meet his son. I mean, he is a class act all the way around, and just well deserving of accolades that he receives. That's someone that I consider a personal friend, and he's an expert attorney. He's just a good guy, and certainly knowledgeable about Missouri politics. I know his dad when I was out delivering signs and picking him up out of his dad's garage when he ran for state rep, which is a very long time ago, longer than I like to admit. I didn't know his dad. I was reading a book on Ripley County history. His dad was down in Ripley County and one of the best basketball players ever to come out of Donovan, which if you see it, he's older now, but probably he's definitely in better shape than I am. It is a very accomplished family, and it couldn't be a nicer guy. Let's talk about Kansas City. Now, right now in the Missouri State Senate, if Senator Williams is still filibustering, he was, but it was over Prop A, where the Democrats say trying to overturn the will of the voters. In Kansas City, Mayor Lucas is doing a little bit of the same thing. He's trying to overturn the will of the voters. There was a thing put on the ballot and passed that the city has to spend X amount of their budget on policing. Yeah. Well, they don't want to do that. Right. And they went to court to overturn the will of the voters. If it was a Republican, that's exactly what the Kansas City Star headline would read. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it gets worse than that in this instance, because you have the mayor in Kansas City claiming that he's a stand-in as an individual citizen taxpayer, but yet he's using taxpayer money to hire law firms to prosecute this case against the state to try to block funding levels for the police. So, that's problematic. But it gets worse. We demanded records under the state's open records law to see the invoices. How much taxpayer money is being spent
despite the fact he's claiming to be operating in his private individual taxpayer capacity. And they said they would get us a time cost estimate. They never did. And so after 42 days of waiting, we filed a lawsuit. I mean, the state law that makes certain records available to the public has to be enforced. And as the watchdog and the enforcement arm of the state of Missouri for the Sunshine Law, we took action. And at the end of the day, it's important that policymakers in Jefferson City and the General Assembly and at the governor's office and across the state government understand what's going on here. That you've got a city fighting to block a state law, using taxpayer dollars, and I would argue abusing that taxpayer standing doctrine to accomplish that. But we have won in court on the issue of the lawsuit, and so now we're going to win in court to obtain the public documents that we're owed.
So obviously that was I get what you're saying, but just so I got my mind around it. So Quentin said he did not like the thing that was passed, which is his prerogative to oppose a ballot measure, vote against it, whatever. So he wants to sue over it. So he doesn't sue on behalf of the city in his capacity as mayor. He sues in his capacity as Quentin Lewis, Kansas City citizen, but the Kansas City taxpayers are paying the bill for the lawyers.
That's correct.
Can you do that?
Well, the court has not blocked him from doing that yet. But
we have a segment with Jesus Ossetti where we say, is that shit legal? I don't know if we can do that anymore now that he works for Trump, but can you do that?
Well, and again, I think we need to go back and do a deep dive into what happened there. And that's why we need the records to demonstrate exactly how much taxpayer money was spent and which law firms were selected and how did that selection process transpire? Why were those law firms selected to do this? And so getting that information is really vital so that the policymakers in Jefferson City can set policy positions to prevent this kind of abuse from happening in the future.
So where does this lawsuit end? I mean, I assume it's a bit of a long shot to overturn this constitutional amendment, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've already won that lawsuit. So he's free to appeal, but at that point he's using a lot more taxpayer money to continue to fight a losing battle. The second lawsuit now is the lawsuit seeking the public records that he owes. The Sunshine Law is clear. If a public governmental body receives a request for information, they have 3 business days to respond and either provide the records or the earliest possible date they will be made available and a detailed reason as to why you can't have them now. You don't get to just ignore it, and yet that's what happened here. And again, if I go to the Kansas City Star...
A lot of government entities in this state ignore them.
Well, that's true, and under Chapter 610.027, I believe, is what gives the state of Missouri AG the
I like it when he
authority.
does the thing where he cites it. Like,
Like
I
the
have no...
statute
that could even be a fake one. I have no idea if that's actually real, but I like the thing he does when he starts reciting the statute numbers.
The point is the AG has enforcement authority. We're going to exercise that authority, and look, we have cleared the backlog of sunshine requests that were pending in my office. We've dedicated extra time, extra staff, extra attention to detail to make sure that the public had the transparency that they are owed under the law. And I call on every public governmental body to do the same.
A lot of times, though, these are just liberal groups. If I had to guess, I don't know, but I would say 80%, maybe more. It's not a citizen wanting records of their government. It's not an elected official wanting records of the government work you're doing. It is a liberal-funded entity, most of them funded out of state, sometimes even originated out of state, just want to screw with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if my buddy from Fairway sends you a sunshine request and you could tell it was a regular citizen, do you give them a little extra precedence?
You know, we treat all of them the same.
Really?
And my disagreement
I'd give
with
the boy from Fairway a little bit of a leg up over some bitch from Fairfax, Virginia.
You know, under the law, everyone who makes a request is entitled to the records. And were I to cherry pick favorites, that would be an abuse of my authority. And so unlike the mayor in St. Louis, or excuse me, the mayor in Kansas City who's ignored the request, we're going to treat all of them in the order in which they came in and treat all of them the same way so that people, even if I disagree with their motivations, obtain the public records that they're owed under the law.
What about the new mayor? Have you spoken to Mayor Spencer yet?
I haven't personally. You know, I think it's a new day in St. Louis. I think that
She did reach out to Governor Kehoe.
she has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did know
Yeah.
that.
That doesn't surprise me. I think
She dropped her lawsuit against the state takeover. I think that was a good sign of good faith, maybe, right? I thought that was a promising sign of the cooperation that could happen. Because if you're the mayor of St. Louis, you have a lot of levers.
Well, there's some other things going on there, too, in that the federal court had said that, based on the 4 corners of that lawsuit, it looked frivolous and had demanded that the city show cause why it should not be dismissed with prejudice as a sanction for filing a frivolous lawsuit. So, look, I mean, the state hadn't even been served and had an opportunity to intervene in that suit before the federal judge was lambasting the frivolity thereof. So, but at the same time, I applaud Mayor Spencer for reaching out to Governor Kehoe and for taking affirmative steps. You know, we disagree on politics and policy, but we both care about the city of St. Louis, and I hope that the state can work together with all political subdivisions to move the state in the right direction.
You have some good things happening in St. Louis. I mean, I am not a Tashard Jones hater, but the folks wanted to go a different direction in a pretty substantial way. I think there's Donna Behringer. I think that was just a clear test of, I don't know what the comptroller does, if you want the truth. I doubt many people in St. Louis really do. They had a choice of the same or different, and they went different. Greater St. Louis, I think, is really turning a page. I mean, you start bringing in Tim Brinker from your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
You start bringing a guy like Jeff Mazur, I mean, a real visionary. I feel like, Kehoe said, smart money buys low, sells high. If you're going to buy low, frankly, St. Louis has had some rough times, dating back to TWA leaving. I think it's time for a little optimism about St. Louis.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And I think, again, I applaud Governor Kehoe's vision and leadership making St. Louis a priority. I applaud the General Assembly. Look, that's hard work. Late nights, hammering out a bill and doing so in a timely fashion. And
Nick Shore, I don't think gets enough credit, not even for the time he spent on the floor, but the hours he wasn't on the floor whining about something. I think people underestimate Nick Shore sometimes. I think he's a powerful guy who's got a great future, and what an accomplishment. You can serve in that building for 16 years and never do anything close to what he was able to lead through the state Senate.
Nick Schroer is a fantastic legislator, fantastic leader for the St. Louis region. You know, coming out of St. Charles County, where he's seen as a collar county, you know, the issues in the metropolitan area. You know, as an attorney I've practiced law with, he's got a strong beard game, I would say. You know, I don't know that anyone can top that.
He kind of does have a strong beard game.
Yeah,
not quite what Kelton has, but I mean, it's competitive.
Yeah, Nick Schroer's great though, and we're lucky to have him in the Senate, and hopefully he'll stay in public service because I think he's got a bright future.
I got to be on a podcast, the 6 Forward More podcast. Representative Hyman, Faughn, and Donnie Brown do this podcast in Dean Van Schweik's office. We had a great time. I did my Dusty Rhodes impression. We talked about Ashley Bax beating a dude up at a bar. We talked about setting the North American record for Jaeger moms. I actually am. You're not the only government official here. I am a licensed professional wrestling referee, 100%. I got to get that in here. It's in my other office. But great, you should go 6 Forward More. They do it every week of session. Good dudes. They had Jeff Knight on the week before, so they had to up their game from Knight, which I hope I wasn't. It was a low bar, but I think we did it. Check out 6 Forward More. They're fun dudes. It's a short podcast. It's a good time. Let's talk about some issues here in the state. PBMs, something that got a lot of attention in the governor's race, right? Aaron, what is a PBM?
Pharmacy benefit manager. They essentially right now play the middleman. Many think they're kind of monopolizing the market power over how we set drug prices in between your employer-sponsored, typically insurance plan, and what you pay at the end of the day.
How long can the Obamacare people come back and want more and more? The same folks that brought you Obamacare got their hand out all the time. I feel bad for folks on charity, and good. I think it's a fine thing the state gives out charity. But damn, how much longer is that old boy swinging a hammer out there in the rain do they have to work to give the Obamacare people more money?
Well, I'm going to defer to the Attorney General since he filed a lawsuit with many other Attorney Generals last week on the work he's doing here. But I think he's really looking out for consumers in this battle on what essentially at the end of the day, what your end of your prices at the drug counter.
I mean, I feel bad for folks on charity. I think it's wonderful that you folks at the state give out charity to people for health care. But damn, I mean, how long does the old boy out there swinging the hammer have to work to pay for it?
Well, let's look at a different perspective to your point that, you've got PBMs that direct business to big pharmacies and ignore small town pharmacies. So like the pharmacy in Montgomery City, for instance, may not be part of that PBM network, and they're going to lose out. So now there's this unfair anti-competitive action going on from the PBMs that's hurting rural
your heart
Missouri.
Goes out to the pharmacies, but boy, them hospitals, they just make decision after decision. I don't think the hospitals care at all about the old boy working. I just think they put the hammer and sickle flag up and just give me more. The only amount of money I've seen the hospitals ever be happy with is more.
And what's happened to patients? The cost for patients has not gone down.
The workers screwed, the patients screwed.
Yeah.
The decisions they make in these hospitals, my God, what do you do?
Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to look out for Missouri consumers. That means Missouri patients.
And they straight Vescovo themselves year after year. I don't get it. Talk about Jay Atkins. That's a guy that I think, I was an old staff guy, so maybe it's more, but I've watched Jay. If you're around Jeff City, you know Jay. The role he's taken in your office. First of all, what is it? And man, it just feels like he's really just operating at a high level right now.
Yeah, Jay's been great. He's a longtime Missouri resident who, veteran, served in the Navy, came home, went to law school. He's worked at the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. He's worked for Missouri Chamber of Commerce. He's worked at Hush Blackwell. He has worked under Attorney General Eric Schmidt as his general counsel. And then when I came on, we made him chief of staff. He did that for a while. We had some transition after about 12, 18 months. And that kind of staff turnover is normal. He moved into a first assistant role and has really been a great benefit to us to maintain relationships throughout Jefferson City, and then just make sure that we're putting lead on the target on issues like PBMs, like consumer protection issues, like ensuring that our relationships amongst the Missouri Office of Prosecution Services and law enforcement entities, that those are sound and that we're, again, working together with those stakeholders. And I think those relationships that he's built over time.
Yeah,
you
see knows everybody.
Yeah, he knows everybody. Everybody knows him, and those relationships matter and have been helpful.
Let's talk a little more. What's going on with porn? Like, I see something about porn, and you got to put your ID in or something. Come on, man. You're telling me, Gasconade County wants that?
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Scott. At the end of the day, this is about parental rights and protecting kids. We're one of the few states that didn't have any kind of age verification to access pornographic sites. Look, if I go onto
Charles Barkley would say, come on, man.
Hey, look, if I go onto a website to shop for a firearm or ammunition, California and New York state law mandates that I have to, even here in Missouri, click whether or not I'm 18 years old. Should it be the same for pornographic materials? Doesn't that give the parents the ability to protect their kids against, harmful images and concepts that they may not be ready to talk to them about? And this is a first of its kind rule under our Consumer Protection Authority. Other states have enacted legislation. I think ultimately, I hope the General Assembly will do the same, but in the interim, we're going to stand in the gap. And this rule is a first of its kind in the sense that it provides for both website and device age verification. That's really a unique concept. We also require that the websites delete all personal data, so they're not harvesting the data of individuals accessing these sites. So this is a consumer protection issue to allow parents to protect their kids.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be very popular at the Crystal Tavern in Jefferson County, but I don't want to say anything else about it because I need your help. I'd like to ask you to be a reference for me. I have a new job. The show may be ending. There's a bid request out for parking management director here in Jefferson City. I think no one has interacted with these assholes more than me. I think I'm the perfect person for it. I was going to see if you give me a reference to be the parking manager.
Hey, I'm happy to give you a reference.
Take care of your people.
I know for a fact you've had ample experience and know the parking ordinances probably better than anybody else. So
Inside now, your blog is good if I'm there. I mean, I can't if somebody else gets it, but your blog is totally good with me.
Well, I was going to support you either way because I know you're the right man for the job.
My platform will be I'm going to get a lawn chair and sit at the corner of High and Madison and apologize to all the citizens for the assholes the parking people have been for the last decade. And I'm going to give out dollars to it's called reparations. Really.
Yeah.
So tell me what all you always have cool stuff you're doing, working on. Give me a couple of cool lawsuits you got pending right now.
Yeah, again, fighting for consumer protection issues. Long term, we announced that we're going to launch an algorithmic choice rule in our Consumer Protection Authority. People don't understand.
What is that?
But first of all, Missouri is unique in the sense that our Chapter 407 Consumer Protection Authority is
doing it again.
It's as broader than any other state in the nation.
But you look at me like I somehow am going to know what the hell you're talking about.
Look,
which there's zero chance.
If I was talking parking ordinances, you'd be right there.
Of course, yeah.
But
did you hear that, Jefferson City?
You have to be in the municipal code.
That's right. Yeah, let me crack open the municipal code.
Yeah.
But look, what we've seen is government censorship of speech on big tech social media. We fought that in our case, Missouri v. Biden, that my predecessor, Eric Schmidt, started, and we took all the way to the United States Supreme Court after I took over. President Trump has largely resolved that issue with his executive order on day one, ending the government censorship regime. But corporate censorship still exists. And the First Amendment has been interpreted in the net choice cases that the United States Supreme Court handed down last June to empower big tech to manage the feeds as they see fit. Well, from a consumer protection issue, we demand algorithmic choice, where you as a user get to determine who is curating your feed, not some big tech oligarch in Silicon Valley. And ultimately, that's a better consumer experience for you. It's better consumer protection, and it'll actually increase your screen time because if you're getting fed products you like, you're more likely to stay engaged. So it's better
increase
for
some of your screen time, right? I mean, other screen
Yeah,
time has
sorry.
been inhibited a little bit, right?
Yeah, well,
But,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. But
So
Little
when
consumer
you've
protection
ever
exercise.
quoted these statutes, does anybody like say, no, that's not the right statute?
hey, look, I don't always get
I'm going to
that.
do it next
Yeah,
time.
that's
Be like, well, according to 41269 or 52, it's actually I'm gonna see next time if you know when I make one up. And I really think what you should do next time somebody's giving you grief is just make one up and see if they notice. Because
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way they'll notice.
Yeah.
All right, Cindy O'Loughlin was in that chair yesterday. We did some word association. A little word association.
Oh gosh, put
Let's
me on
start
the
with
spot.
Cindy O'Loughlin.
Competence.
Okay, you go.
Leader.
I think freaking cool. I just think she's cool. Like everything she says, even if I think it's totally wrong, the way she says it, she's very genuine.
Yeah.
There's just I think I would go genuine.
Yeah.
Because whatever she says, I'm so compelled by because I actually think she means it.
I think she does. There's no. She's not going to feed you a line of garbage. I mean, she's going to shoot you straight.
Yeah. Let's go Kehoe.
Leadership.
I'm gonna steal yours from yesterday. Winner.
He's a winner. I think he's a winner. And it takes leadership and all that to be.
And his softball team actually won the tournament, so the
dude
winning
wins. He
streak
does
just
win.
continues.
Although, I have a bit of an announcement to make.
Uh-oh.
Cinder O'Loughlin and I, really I'm
Are
going to
you-
put this off
are
on
you-
Jake. We're putting together our own team next year.
Oh, I
Yes.
was gonna actually ask the Attorney General why he didn't go ahead and throw it. I didn't know
Well,
the
you wanna
statewide
join our
started
alliance?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, we'll be happy to. We've got a lot of folks at the
Yes,
AG's
you do.
office
That are chomping at the bit
yeah,
to
we-
play in that softball.
And you know some
Try
highway
out.
patrolmen, right?
Yeah, that's true. I've seen some of those teams where those troopers get on those teams. and
So
man,
are
they,
you in? Are you joining? Or
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Sweet.
Okay.
I would call Cindy, but she might answer and tell her, Cinder O'Loughlin, I have good news when I see you. We have a third person to join our team to take out Kehoe's team next year. We're on it. We're on this. Aaron, you in?
I like the drink beer team. That's the team I played on this
We're
year.
gonna
I'm
do
gonna
that, too. I mean, I
stay.
thought
I'm
that
going to
would-
stay on that
I
team.
thought that went without saying that we would,
I don't know. There's a lot of serious teams. When we start getting too serious,
we're going to be both. Winners do both.
I've told you, I'm a better golfer than I am. Didn't play softball, so.
Well, we were let you on, but now that you said that, you probably
I
don't
know.
need her.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay on my drink beer team.
What about Eric Schmidt?
Gosh, man, he left behind. Talk about a legacy of excellence that he left
Yeah.
at the AG's office, and just the short time he was there, he did so much for this state to move that office in a good direction. I am the benefactor. I benefit from all the work that he did and so many of the issues that he teed up for us. And so, someone I really look up to, we stay in constant contact with, and consider a personal friend.
Jay Atkins.
Yeah, I mean, again, just a personal friend, key component of the office and the organization.
Burgum.
Yeah, I mean, almost like family.
He's just that dude, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just that guy.
He's one of the most genuine and humble human beings I've ever met.
And funny.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one thing some people don't get is he's just funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What about Brad Christ?
Yeah, Brad is a high flyer. I mean,
Yeah.
just a high level of competence.
Yeah.
You know, that's a guy who understands municipal government from his time in law enforcement, understands criminal justice system, understands how to get things done in Jefferson City. And for him to be able to forge the coalition needed to get that bill passed is a testament to his acumen and abilities.
This year, will you see a picture of maybe you and the governor and your wives out downtown? I mean, I think that's the kind of thing that makes people feel like it's a real, things are actually safer. When say a picture of you and your wife having dinner,
Yeah.
I think that makes people feel like, okay, maybe this isn't the war zone I've read it was.
Yeah, I've had dinner downtown with Kehoe's this year, and so would love to do that again. And I think as the weather continues to improve, there'll be more opportunities. And I think as the climate on the ground there in St. Louis continues to improve, hopefully there's more opportunities there.
It's not a word association, probably not fair, but I don't think a lot of people know how close you are to the Trump administration. How many connections you have, how Donald Trump's very aware of the stuff, of the work you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity every time we get to go to the White House. And, Deputy Chief of Staff James Lawson has taken over the role, really interfacing with the White House on issues for us. And so that's been an enormous benefit.
How'd you get a Raleigh Bulldog on your team? I mean, that probably took a lot of effort. And
We're old high school friends, so we grew up together. So that I had to put the sales pitch to him, but he's been great connective tissue with the White
does
House.
he have the vest yet? I know he's on the team, but does he have a vest?
That's standard issue on day one. You get
Okay, good, day
the
one.
Attorney General's office vest, and then
Used to get business cards. It's kind of over. Now you just get the vest. Right?
yeah, you get the vest. That's right.
So if he kicks in your door, if he's wearing the vest, you'll know it's
He's
legit.
from the
You
AG's
don't
office.
shoot
That's
back.
right.
Just
Yeah.
put your gun down.
Yeah.
I love that. So What else you working on? Give me one more thing you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, continuing to build out our relationship with local prosecutors. We have traveled circuit by circuit, meeting with sheriffs, police chiefs, prosecutors, just to reset the relationship that we have.
It's a big deal.
It is. We assist at the trial court level prosecution. We handle 100% of felony appeals. And so it's better that we're involved at the front end and have those relationships so that the work product that they do that we then get on the back end, we're better positioned to defend.
Well, what people don't realize is that relationship people think is always like this. It has not always been like this in the history of the state. It's at times been quite adversarial.
Yeah, that's right. I come from a county prosecutor's office,
Yeah.
and so I respect and understand the work they do. The challenges that our local prosecutors face are greater now than when I was at a county PA's office. And so acknowledging that and being willing to work with them to find solutions to those problems and being there to support them. We were in 29 different counties. The AG's office has been in 29 different counties last year alone doing assists with our local prosecutors. We want to grow that out and continue to build out that relationship. And again, it's not about supplanting local control. It's about supporting locals. We've still got several counties in the state where we have part-time prosecutors. And so it's important that the state have a safety valve and a resource available for those individuals to make sure that public safety in those rural counties is supported as well.
I know most of them have a low caseload compared to ones that are full-time. I just don't know in today's world how you do that job part-time.
Well, especially given the change in the bond rules that require more court appearances. And so it's more critical now than ever that having prosecutors in court. And so I'll tell you this, those part-time prosecutors, it's part-time pay, but it's a full-time job.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think there's much thing as a part-time prosecutor anymore. Aaron, what are you working on today?
Today,
Yeah.
working on had a community solar pilot program, get out of rules, got CUP's rules committee, which is no easy feat these days,
Did you win the lottery match, or how'd that work?
I offered to Scott to personally write the lottery numbers on the balls for him if he
Was
wanted
it going to be all your bill when he pulled out?
I just offered my services. No.
How you gonna talk Cindy into that? She was sitting here yesterday just not having it at all.
Anyway, so that's a good thing that happened today.
Yeah, I think that's the best strategy. I don't know what you do there. I think they're going to do school open enrollment in the Senate. It feels like, there's going to be a major change in how schools are funded and where you go to school come 27 when the commission's done with whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
It sometimes feels like, why go through all the effort to pass a reform now when session after next, I think, is when everything changes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what concerns me is that our kids are being underserved by the educational status quo. And anytime you hear sacred guardians of the status quo, the radar should start pinging that there's a problem here. And for too long, we have settled for mediocrity, we've settled for status quo, and we've been unwilling to consider change. And I think we should always be looking for ways to get better. And I applaud the work the General Assembly is doing on ed reform. And I think you're right. The trajectory long term is going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, their only hope was to have a governor elected that went to war with the General Assembly where nothing happened.
Yeah.
I watch people, even in the education establishment, friends of mine, would say, "Oh, can't have Michael Rask." I was like, "Well, he's not. I mean, Mike Hill's not going to get on Facebook and whine all day and piss you off." But he's going to put up wins.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're seeing from the crime bill and other stuff is when he walks through that legislature, it's not always asking for stuff. It's a lot of time checking on people, seeing if they need anything, which means when he does want something, they're all too happy to go with it. I wonder what happens tonight in the Senate, but I think more to the point, this is going to change. The world will be different 2 years from now. So
I think that there were people who kind of looked at Governor Kehoe in his role in the Senate and as lieutenant governor and said, look, he's been able to make a lot of friends, but is he able to have tough conversations as well and hold people's feet to the fire? And I think he's proven that as governor just this short time during the session that he can play both roles, and I think that makes him an effective leader.
Senator O'Loughlin just said, welcome to the resistance. So, welcome to the team. Attorney General, everybody, thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Aaron Tripp, what are you doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Well, I believe the Senate could be doing something tomorrow, so I think I'm tied up tomorrow. But
we're gonna have Patterson here. I
might get a.
Do you have more important
here.
things to do than talk to the speaker? Because that's a questionable decision, I think.
Finally, getting to talk to another golfer would be great. So I would welcome that opportunity to come back.
They're at Lakewood.
Yeah.
Well, if you're free, you're welcome to join us. We'll have Patterson here. Well, word association, we'll ask him about Andrew Bailey. See if he'll give us some good. He probably won't, though. He's so tough to get anything out of. Like Cindy, you cannot stop. Like whatever.
The poker face.
Yeah. And then Andrew's very polished. He starts quoting possibly statutes, possibly made up numbers. Patterson, though, that's going to be the trick is to get some answers out of him.
He's definitely got.
Although he says he's got a lot to say, I've just never seen him do that before. So we'll test that theory out tomorrow if you're free.
TBD.
Thank you so much, Lewis. I appreciate it. We'll be back here tomorrow. The Speaker of the House, John Patterson. Thursday, Jake will be here. Then we'll see you Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics.